This is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the SteelSeries Prime. This is the wired version of SteelSeries lineup of Prime mice. There's the Prime Plus, and the Prime Wireless. I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing all of those separately, so be sure to be subscribed if you enjoy this one. Now I'm going to talk to you about what the Prime Wired is like to use, the weird things about it, the highlights of it, and more, as well as talking about what's included in the box, which, as you can imagine, isn't very much for this price. This is a very affordable lightweight gaming mouse from SteelSeries, and it's kind of no frills, as you saw from that beginning shot, in the same way that the Logitech G Pro X Superlight is for Logitech. It's an understated mouse with some really good specs. The specs on the Prime include the company's OM mechanical switches. These are optical magnetic switches, so they use optical light beams in order to track the clicks, which means that it'll last longer and hopefully provide more accuracy, and they're guaranteed up to 100 million clicks. They also have SteelSeries TrueMove Pro optical sensor, and it has an 18,000 max CPI, which is counts per inch, 450 IPS, 50 Gs acceleration, and it weighs in at 69 grams. That point about it being 69 grams is interesting, because it's actually heavier than SteelSeries Aerox 3, which I reviewed previously as their lightweight mouse, and that's quite different. So I'm going to do a comparison video. I'm going to show you some shots at the end to show them side by side, but I'm going to do a more in-depth look at the differences between them, because I think if you're considering lightweight mice, those two are great options for different reasons potentially. You'll see what I was talking about here with the Prime being very understated. No RGB lighting zones for the most part, apart from around the mouse wheel, which I'll show you later on, which is really subtle. One thing that is strange, at least from my point of view, is that this mouse is wired, and yet the wire is detachable. I don't understand why. I don't understand why you'd need that. I suppose it might reduce wear and tear over time, and maybe you might tug the cable out, perhaps use it to travel. I'm not sure. I don't understand why they've done it, which is one of the things that I find confusing. One of the things you might find confusing as well is not only is it a detachable cable, but it's a micro USB cable, which I know loads of people hate, and also doesn't make much sense considering that with the Aerox 3 wireless, for example, it was a USB-C connection. So it's a bit of a strange choice. On the underside, you'll notice a DPI switching button that can be tweaked in the software, and some slick feet. I don't believe they are PTFE feet, but they are very slick. You can see me flying it around on this desk pad, and it is agile and easy to use in that way. 69 grams, feels nice and light in the hand, and the clicks on the buttons are very satisfying. By the way, I have an ASMR unboxing of this mouse, which is basically this video but without me talking over top of it, if you want to hear the clicks more or just relish in the unboxing sounds. So be sure to check out my ASMR channel. But what you're seeing is quite an interesting mouse, an affordable one with an ergonomic shape. It's fairly good size, I'd say. I wouldn't call it large, and I wouldn't call it small either. It fits nicely in the hand. It's larger at the back and at the top than it is at the front, which makes it easy to grip onto. It's designed for all sorts of grip types, so palm, claw, and fingertip grip. And you can see the way I hold it, and I found it comfortable in that way. It sounds quite hollow, which is to be expected from a lightweight mouse, where most other lightweight mice have holes in them. This one doesn't, so that means that the shell is quite hollow sounding. I found the mouse wheel to be quite loud, but not obnoxiously so. It also has a nice tactile feedback to it. Now, an interesting point I was talking about before is it weighs in at 69 grams, but that is without the cable. So you can see digital scales here show it at 69 grams. Now, the SteelSeries Aerox 3 was just 50 something by comparison. So this is actually quite a bit heavier than that, which is a bit strange. It was 57 grams, whereas this is 69. And if you put the cable on and weigh that too, it's actually 103. So I think marketing it as 69 grams is perhaps misleading a little bit, but it is very agile, and obviously that is a slick cable as well, so that flies about on the desk just as easily and it doesn't get stuck. So the main selling points of this mouse are actually the optical sensor and the mechanical switches with the magnetic setup inside. So they'd said they'd designed it with larger, longer switches that will be more durable over time, and then also obviously give you an accurate response thanks to that optical setup, so it registers a click when the light beam gets broken. But what it means in usual user terms is the clicks are quite satisfying. Has a good click to it, and that should stand up over time, as well with the actuation being carried over properly and less problems with debounce. Now while we're looking at the side of the mouse, I'll show you that there isn't much in the way of a grip here. It has an ABS sort of rough textured finish to it, not particularly rough, but it's not a slick plastic finish. But there's no sort of textured grips on either side. I didn't find this was an issue. I didn't find that it slipped and flew about in my hand, and I do get quite hot hands when gaming, but it's not been a problem there. But it's a very understated look and feel to it. One of the biggest problems I have had with this mouse, though, unfortunately, is those side buttons. The buttons that you can see aren't sticking out very far. They're not very large. The rear one, the back, is actually easy to get hold of, but I found the front mouse button to be very difficult to press. So that thumb button basically got me killed several times in games because I couldn't use the button. I was expecting an action to happen and nothing happened. It's very difficult to click. The very front of it's quite recessed. Some people might find the mouse wheel to be a bit obnoxious. I know that Random Frank P, when he reviewed this mouse, said that he didn't like it. I didn't find it a problem. It's not as loud as some other mice I've tried recently. It has a nice rubber finish to it and a good setup there. There's no excess play in the buttons as well. So you're getting a quite good mouse with a good setup and a few minor complaints. A bit odd having that micro USB connection, if you ask me. I really hate that front thumb button. And there's no RGB lighting, which apart from the mouse wheel, which is very minimal RGB. So you don't have to have RGB, which is either a good or a bad thing, depending on your personal preference. Now, there are other sort of hidden highlights to this. For example, it has an adjustable polling rate, which you can adjust by holding the CPI button underneath and adjusting the scroll wheel. And when you go through the various DPI levels, you also get a change in the RGB lighting on the mouse wheel. 400 CPI is purple, 800 is blue, green is 1200, yellow is 2400, and red is 3200. But you can go all the way up to 18,000 DPI levels. Now I just want to show you what it looks like compared with the Logitech G Pro X Superlight. These are two similarly sized mice. The G Pro X Superlight is a wireless mouse, and it is considerably more expensive. It is also very similarly sized. It does have much larger PTFE feet on it than the Prime, and it is obviously a better quality, although they do kind of look very similar in terms of the understated nature of them. The G Pro X Superlight has no RGB lighting, nothing shining particularly. It is perhaps a little bit slicker in its standard body design. You can see I have the grip tape that's included with the Superlight installed there to make it fit and a bit more grippy, and the end result is a not quite nice looking mouse, but again, that depends on your personal preference. And here you can see it alongside the SteelSeries Aerox 3. So as I said, this is the lighter mice of the two. Both the wired and wireless version are lighter, but you can see the differences here as well. That has that old honeycomb design to it, loads of holes in it, which I know some people might not like because the idea of dust and dirt build up over time, probably going to get pretty mucky. Obviously you can throw some compressed air in there to sort it out, but perhaps you want something that's a bit more solid and yet still lightweight, and so that's where the Prime comes in, and a nice bit of kit in that way. However, I actually found the Aerox 3 better, and I'll go into more depth on that in the Versus video that I'll do in the near future, or you can check out my review of the Aerox 3 wireless. But you can see them side by side just to give you an idea of the slightly different shape to them. So not only is the Aerox 3 honeycomb and the Prime isn't, they're also slightly different ergonomic designs. The Prime is actually a little bit nicer in terms of comfort because of the way it pushes up on your palm, but that's going to be a personal preference. Now I'm going to dive into the software. And here we are within SteelSeries GG, which is the updated software that SteelSeries now uses in place of the SteelSeries engine, which unfortunately includes a load of other guff like pages selling things and other things, as well as giveaways. There is some interesting intelligence in moments, though. You can use it to capture clips from the gameplay, which is pretty cool, but not something I've played around with too much. But the SteelSeries engine is now buried under the engine tab in GG. Click on Prime and you then have access to a variety of things in here. You can see one of the interesting things on the side, for example, is you can set up a configuration to auto launch a setup depending on a specific game that you might be launching. So you can find your Steam games, for example, and then pick a specific game. I like How Let Loose, and you can add that in there, and then you can get that to launch this specific configuration, or you can set it to the default. So we could set the configuration to have different settings for that game and then automatically swap over. So you can adjust the mouse wheel brightness here. You can also adjust the RGB lighting on it. I showed some of this in the video already. You basically just switch between these, or you can pick the levels here and adjust it in specifics in that way really easily. You also have a live preview, so you're automatically seeing it. The CPI levels are as default set to 600, 800, 1200, 2400 and 3200, and you can obviously change those, and also, as I said, the button underneath will change between those levels. And you can also see what level you're at with the visual cue on the mouse wheel, or it will change color to let you know which one you've changed between. What you will know is there is no way to change that CPI button though, because you have button 1, which is left, right, middle mouse button and side buttons, but there's no way to change the CPI button underneath to do something else. Bit of an oddity, but I suppose you probably wouldn't change it to do much more anyway. You can, however, record macros, so it's possible to record macros in here. You can basically just launch this, start mashing the buttons. You'll see that there's a timer, so you can choose that. We can also stop it. You can go through, you can delete specific things pretty easily. You can edit them. It's really easy to be able to change whatever you want, and obviously you can then assign that to a specific button, one of the side buttons, for example. You can go through and find your macro and then assign your macro. You have obviously the option to add keyboard buttons, default buttons. You can add media playback buttons, launch applications. All sorts of actions are possible from here. You obviously are limited to the number of buttons available, but it's worth noting. You can see the polling rate is set to 1000. As I said, you can press and hold the CPI button. You can long press the CPI button and it will change between these. So if I do that now, you should see that happen. Yep, you can see it goes to 500, 250, 125. But during testing, I have been using it at 1000, and that's what I'm going to keep it at. But you can see fairly straightforward and simple software. It's a shame you can't customize the button underneath, but it is nice that you can record macros and you can set up specific configurations for the mouse that will launch depending on what game you're playing. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.